Hi everyone. Today we've got David Ferry, international artist, lithographer, uh, artist adventurer, and president of the Royal Society of Printmakers. So, David, hello and welcome. And could you start your talk, please?
So, okay, here we go then. 40 minutes of quick fire machine gun action, which I've deliberately left out all academic trace of my career. We're going straight into the context of influence and what motivates me to continue to make work after all these years. I'm starting with something not by me, though, on purpose. This is the last outing that the RE had. One of my missions as president has been to hopefully internationalize the society to where it's never been before. This was in Beijing last year, and we're there again this year. Anyway, that's that. Okay, I never really wanted to be an academic or artist, wanted to be a Tour de France cyclist. I made it to county championship level, and I've raced in Europe, North America, Australia, and South Africa. Okay, enough of that. You'll find out later why that came to an abrupt end. Yeah, anyway. This is the first piece of work I can find I ever did. It's of Steve Zodiac, and I did it when I was 4, and I was meant to paint it by numbers, but I suppose being diffident and dyslexic makes me not follow rules very well. It's an insightful full-length portrait of Colonel Steve Zodiac. Colonel should read Colonel, but as I said, I can't spell. And then I've put a leading art critic from my imagination and the world of academe. The artist has reimagined the whole conceptual alignment that exists within the history of art, revealing a multiplicity of intrinsic visualizations. These combine intellectually to unearth the normality of the normally invisible fabrics of creation. I had years of putting up with that stuff. So I'm going to get into my own works now. I've called this talk Tarmac and Candy Floss on purpose. The tarmac, pretty obvious from the many years and hundreds of thousands of miles spent on a saddle of a bicycle. And candy floss because it was basically the common food stuff of the town that I was born in, Blackpool. So, some stories from the road from Blackpool to London via bingo, progressive rock, and other stuff. So, this is the town I was born in and worked in after leaving school or being told to leave school. It's a more sensitive comment than expelled. And worked in. This is Blackpool. Blackpool changes all the time, particularly at night, when it changes into a type of Las Vegas. So it's basically a 24/7 city in the season, let's call it. However, in that season comes all sorts of shapes, sizes, and contexts. The carnivalesque is something that has kept me going for a very long time. The carnivalesque can be described as a mocking or satirical challenge to authority and the traditional social hierarchy. Blackpool has provided a space for the upturning of the accepted. So here we have on the left side Dougie Wallace's hens and bunnies on parade at lunchtime. Imagine what state they were in by 6 o'clock. And two lads on a stag night who are having to refuel after a heavy session. This is daily, and it was daily throughout my school days on the walk to school, and later on the Golden Mile, where my first job was. Anyway, the difference of the norm into the unexpected into the difference is basically a bit of a mantra for me. If you look at this colourful, it's been coloured in by inks on the photographic process. It's basically an early form of photolithography, probably early 60s postcard by John Hind, the company in Dublin. It's very, very close to where I was born, but the houses aren't that red, the sea isn't that blue, and the sky is certainly not Mediterranean. It's grey. The one wonderful thing about this postcard is it's totally fictitious. It is a montage. If we look at the tram on the right-hand side, it's there as a part of the golden mean, the golden triangle of Renaissance painting. If that movement wasn't there, if that green and cream wasn't there, the composition would fall on its left-hand side. However, when we look at that more carefully, not only is it balancing the composition, it actually shouldn't be there at all, because it's on the road. There are no tracks. It's been lifted in. Wonderful. That when I rediscovered for a project I was doing, this became a very valuable piece of my collection. It's totally and utterly fictitious. Also, the Fylde coast is one of the flattest peninsulas in Europe, and yet look at the hill that those people and cars are having to go up. Nonsense. Adversity, alternative art, Blackpool, bingo, cycling, left field, mentor, punk, progressive, surrealism, Sunday, boredom, teaching. I'll be tracing all those aspects in a moment. One of the first things I saw on television as a kid, probably whilst colouring in Steve Zodiac in the wrong colours, was Doctor Who and the Daleks. Not dissimilar at all to that postcard that we now know is totally fictitious, so clearly is this. And yet the Daleks are in a real place, seemingly moving down Westminster Bridge. It frightened me to death as a little lad, but in later life, it absolutely consumes an idea of British surrealism well outside that of the easel or the etching plate. And this is my, apart from my mum and grandma's, of course, this was my first introduction to ladies in the form of Diana Rigg as Miss Emma Peel, screened on Sunday evenings after Sunday night at the London Palladium, and my dad allowed me to stay up to watch it. I was absolutely fascinated, not just by Diana Rigg, but the surreal intent of the dialogue and the episodes. Something happening where it shouldn't, and yet it looks real. Personified in this production still of Patrick Macnee's Steed, the character Steed in the Avengers, who has been reduced. Probably first time on British Surrealist television that this was done, following the 1950s American film The Invisible Shrinking Man. Okay, I was taken to see this film twice in the same week by both sets of grandmas. It's haunted me ever since. This is Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music. Sometimes it takes decades and decades to get your own back. And so I did, with a set of pictures that are very, very different to the scenario in the film. Sandra Higgins, wonderful Sandra Higgins, is my dealer agent, and I've been with her for a very, very long time and very privileged to have that support. And here are two large montages from a whole series of what I thought it might be like to live in a cabin by yourself at the top of a mountain, and not either in Lewisham, Canterbury High Street or Blackpool. The end of school, towards the end of my school days, we were marched into the school hall and told that we were all have to have a session with a careers advisor. Girls were mainly given suggestions towards the caring and devotional occupations of secretary, housewife and nurse, and the boys towards a career in local government, trades, the fascinating world of a trainee supermarket manager, and in seaside towns, seasonal tourist-related jobs. I got my national insurance number at 16. I was too young to get it after I'd left school. And an appointment in the local labour exchange, the wonderfully titled Labour Exchange job centre that became. I was given the opportunity to apply for 3 jobs, one as an NHS glass eye clerical assistant. There was a little unit in Bispam near Blackpool that produced glass eyes for the NHS. A trainee sugar boiler, that means boiling rock and making candy floss, or an assistant bingo caller, and I went for the bingo job. You'll see later in the talk how that bingo came back to haunt me, or maybe I got my own back on it, like I did Julie Andrews. My first taste of culture was progressive rock in this nightclub in Blackpool, which was pretty easy to get into as a 16-year-old with very long hair, because I normally breezed in as a girl, as it were. So underage drinking at 16, no homework, and a revelation that Blackpool existed beyond 9 to 5, i.e. going to school, coming back from school and watching telly all night. Brian London was a famous boxer that lived in Blackpool. My early work, bingo hall, photographic nightclub runner, basically running 35mm and Instamatic shots from nightclubs and delivering the next morning to the lovely romantic couples who were dining there. Shelf stacker in a supermarket and a street cleaner. I had a bin on wheels and a brush. All these actually I can now attest in full academic and research splendour as formative influences for a life in the arts. Changes came thick and fast between 75 and 81, i.e. art school days. Contrasts opposite changes, viewpoints, perceptions, both politically, artistically and socially. Something that I'd never really put together until I started to look more intrinsically about work that was to do with political opposition and such. So the foundation course in art and design at the Blackpool Tech was where I went in 75. I had no art schooling, as it were. It was seen as a joke, art at my school. If you weren't good at football and you weren't that bright because you were dyslexic, but at that time it wasn't diagnosed, you were seen as basically thick. And art and things like French were where people like me inhabited, because it had nothing to do with being picked for football. Preston and Blackpool became my 2 spots, only 15 miles apart. The Grundy Art Gallery and the Harris Museum were where I first saw art, mainly paintings that were relatively of poor turn of the 20th century quality, probably bought cheaply from the Royal Academy Summer Show, or stuff that had been gifted to them in various bequests. But ironically, after I left the Slade, within months of leaving the Slade, I had my first one-man show in that very place. So interesting how things come back to one. This is the first drawing I ever made at the foundation course. It's both grandmas who had dragged me to see The Sound of Music, who wanted to smarten me up because they thought I was going to bad because I had extremely long hair then, and wanted to buy me a proper jacket. So I've put them on the stage at the end of the North Pier, wondering which one will suit David better. Yeah, anyway, there you go. Bit of theatre. One of my best friends at Foundation was Dave Ball. Sadly passed away only very recently. Dave Ball met Mark and they became soft sell at the Leeds College of Art and Design. Me and Dave worked on various summer jobs on the Blackpool seafront during our time on foundation course. Dave decided to go to Leeds because he was reading about the wonderful alternative art of Jeff Nuttall at the time that inspired a lot of performance art in the north. And I went down to London to Camberwell. Anyway, Dave, there you go. You did well. Last thing I did on my last day at work in Blackpool was go and see Gypsy Rose Lee to ask her advice on what I would do in life. She gave me various tips, and she said she'd give me more tips if I gave her more money. So I thanked her very much for looking at my hand for a couple of minutes and left basically no wiser than I did when I came in. But I was more fascinated by the stars of screen and stage from the 50s and 60s. It's basically, this was probably one of the first photo montage installations I probably ever saw and didn't realize it at the time. But now I'm looking at this image, I can see a direct correlation with some things I'm going to show you in a bit. Okay, so September 96, I went to this place, Camberwell, lived in Peckham, very close actually, across the road near the fire station. And this was the big news. So it has to go. Yeah, thanks. That was my cultural introduction to modern music, if you like. 1976, I went to art school. This was Britain's entry for the European Song Contest. Okay, let's go back a bit. Sorry about this. Okay. Oh, look at that. So funny, all this, isn't it? Oh, shit. Just a minute. Have I don't know whether I've gone back or forward now. Bollocks. Sorry. I think I've gone backwards. Shit. Have I? Oh, damn. I think sorry, something's gone awry. I'm going to just stop sharing for a minute and go back into my magic world of otherness and end the show because I was on a roll then and I pressed the wrong bloody thing. Okay, never mind, this happens to me all the time. Okay, there we go, Derek. Wonderful. Okay, now I've got to do the screen share now, but I can't if this is on full. Oh, God, what a pain. Right, okay, so we're on to this. I do share. I do, where am I? Here. Share. Derek. There we go. Okay, so three influential people I met at the Camberwell School of Art and then later at the Slade. They continue to be my tutors and mentors. Mario Dubsky, painter, surrealist painter mainly. Derek Jarman, alternative Miss World, etc. Filmmaker, painter. And Agatha Sorrell, who is probably very well known to the PMC as being one, I believe, of the instigating figures in its inception. The first painting I made at the Slade is the one on the right-hand side, and you can see it has a direct correlation with Agatha, although Agatha was very reluctant to show her own work when she was coming into the etching room at Camberwell. She taught etching there. That was the wonderful thing about Agatha. She taught you something tangible, because I had plenty of images in my head, but I didn't quite know how to articulate them. So first drawing I made, or very early drawing I made at Camberwell, you saw the one of the two grandmas. This is two ladies out shopping when I was going down Peckham High Street to the local supermarket. And I thought that made a great, somewhere an intervention between the world of Coronation Street, the Avengers, and effectively drawing from the life class. Although this was all done from memory. But I started to stick things in. You can see on the right-hand side, I took a photograph of the inside of the supermarket and stuck it into the wall, as it were. All that learning and difference coincided with some of the worst race riots Britain's ever seen. The Battle of Lewisham, 12th of August 1977. Police came round the house saying, take your dustbins in, please. There's likely to be trouble. Right. Well, there was trouble in the punk rock world as well. Around the same time as Brixton and Lewisham, the Sex Pistols hit the scene. I met them all at various parties at some point. They didn't have many people in the audience to start with, and then they absolutely racked it up. By 1977, they were nearly finished, incidentally. We're looking at late 75, 76 as their heyday. The Eurovision Song Contest, however, in 1978, as personified by Derek Jarman, he did this.
My God! Is that all nitrate?
She's England dental for the Eurovision Song Contest. She's my number one.
There we go. Big difference to the Brotherhood of Man, eh? So these are the differences in myself. I couldn't afford another pair of glasses, but clearly the stance, the attitude and the hair had changed radically during my first few years in London. My grandma insisted that I had my hair cut to go to my interview.
David, I don't know if you've noticed, but you've gone very quiet.
Oh, have I?
Yeah.
Oh, how come?
That's better. That's better.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so by 79, it was getting shorter and shorter and in different colours on a weekly basis. I liked experimenting with hair colour at that time. So 1979, I went to the Slade, very famous school, very posh in many ways. But in the Blackpool Evening Gazette, my stepmom had written to the chief reporter saying that I'd got into the Slade, and but she didn't realise that I was going to university and not a pop group. So people in Blackpool rang up my parents' house saying, when is David starting in the Slade, and can we have his autograph, please? I'm sorry, Noddy, but it never happened. Okay, and then more riots. Brixton. Stepping out into a new world, postgraduate. Early morning cleaning, making art, teaching, cycling and writing, all the things that I wanted to do. First book I ever wrote was this one. I got a fantastic deal with Studio Vista via HarperCollins. Was able to get some really great Robert Rauschenberg images in this. Basically, I wrote a book on how to do things backwards, upside down, and without proper materials. That's really what it's all about. The first big commission I ever did, I was appointed artist in residence at Sizewell B Nuclear Power Station from 1990 to 1991. This is, I'm next to one of the last pictures I did, and the drawing is the first drawing I ever made on site. I had to have a special white helmet that was difficult socially because it was the management helmet. The the pith helmet thing. So I got some I got some chaste comments by the tradies, thinking that, you know, can't you do a proper job for a living, mate? Yeah. Anyway, I put that to one side and started working there. I lived in a place called Leiston on the Suffolk coast for a number of months, and that's sort of the first. I guess you could call it a painting, but it isn't really. It's wax and all sorts of stuff scraped and pulled and whatever. But this is basically, that is the main building before it was covered in an apron of grey-coloured concrete, so that it wouldn't jar so much in the landscape. Following that, and then first teaching and all that stuff, I was awarded a Pollock Krasner Foundation Award, quite a big one, and I lived on 49th and 5th, off and on for a 2-year period. During that time, I worked for New York University's Graduate Department and Long Island University as an associate professor in fine art media, which suited me to the ground because they didn't have a formal printmaking setup, which it didn't matter to me at all. So I was able to actually utilize things from the book and things that I was seeing on a regular basis in down on 20th in the Chelsea art area. I absolutely loved it there. Anyway, I got a review in the New York Times for some satirical books I'd started to make, which got me the grant in the first place. And I'm still making books to this day. The interesting thing about artist books is that you can stick things in where they shouldn't be. And I'll get back later in the talk to the fourth mentor that I have. Outside Mario Dubsky, Agatha Sorrell and Derek Jarman, 2 people form the fourth plinth in my world, and that was and they are Joe Orton and Kenneth Helliwell, the subversive playwriters and artist book violators. Basically, they stuck things in library books, put them back on the shelf, and eventually they got sent to prison for it. Wonderful. It's exactly how I make artist books. I thank both of them on a daily basis. So this is one of the first really big ones that came to more of an international attention. David Ferry's Britain in Colour with belligerent rock intrusions, mainly in black and white. So basically, I stuck rocks where they shouldn't be, mainly in black and white, apart from the cover, which was coloured. And what we see here is you can't really go to Canterbury Cathedral like a normal tourist. You have to do some rock climbing exercise before you get through the front door. So all the pages in the book had climbing routes of Britain onto famous places of Britain. It got away from queuing for hours to get in. After belligerent rock intrusions, I looked at how country houses, stately homes, usually have trophies of stuffed animals and other such atrocities, sometimes stuffed fish, pike, trout, eels in little tableaus. So I just turned it round and I stuck the fish in the stately home. So the stately home became basically the bottom of a very big fish tank. And there are some of the plates from it that were later made into prints. This is Wilton House, where incidentally I've never been apart from in my imagination. The thing about if you go to Pets for Us and places like that, you can find stuff that you can put in bottom of fish bowls and aquariums. This is a London bus. Wonderful. British Surrealism, The Avengers, all that stuff. This is Woburn Abbey. the ceremonial table, as it were, the guests of honour table, with Corinthian plinths seconded from said Pets for Us shop. This became a book featuring belligerent rock intrusions, stately aquariums of England, and cake walking in the UK, which we'll get to in a moment. So, rocks, fish, and cakes. But something had to break. One day in the English countryside, a fine art professor was out riding when, yeah, I absolutely came a cropper. Effectively pronounced dead on the road. I was airlifted to St George's Hospital in Tooting to the specialist head and serious trauma spinal unit, and was in and out of there for over 2 years. However, what I was allowed to keep with me was my mobile phone. So I love the wonderful things that I was given. That's my foot on the left-hand side, incidentally. So one day I was given boiled ash with tomato salad and rice pudding. Another day, what looks like the heel of a worn out shoe, after I'd taken what bits of fish were actually in the very thin fish finger. And that was my morning intake of goodness, the pills, and the ones I took at night, there was more than that. Anyway, that got me to start looking at arts charities, and I wrote a chapter in this wonderful book from Unicorn Publishers called The Healing Arts, the arts project at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. Those of you who know Chelsea and Westminster, it is absolutely stuffed with art. They have, I believe, a full collection of some of the cake works I've done, including that one on the left-hand side, where I subverted the whole of the Scottish West of Islands as dessert treats. Anyway, it was very, very an interesting project, and I met some astonishing people, and I was able to talk to people effectively at bedside, sometimes in the tea room, of people that were in the same boat that I was some years before. So giving it back, as it were. Okay, so these are the works that I started effectively in hospital. Cakewalk Wales, photo montage intrusions by me. Cake walking Highland holiday from Arran to Bell Crucan. Photo montages this time. It's sometimes difficult to call things what they're not. Is it a disturbance, a destruction, a montage, a photo montage, an intrusion, or an overlay? Who knows? It doesn't matter. I had great fun in bed making these. They then got slightly more sophisticated when I set myself up as a monumental outdoor sculptor in my head, and called myself the Ministry of Public Sculpture Survey. And this is connected forms, white marble, resin and paint outside Hampton Court, the other end of it. Here's one of the cake ones. Can't pronounce that in Gaelic, but basically these polo-shaped cakes seem to fit very delicately into the geology of the terrain. I was invited to give the 50th anniversary lecture to the Australian the Print Council of Australia, I guess the equivalent of the PMC in the UK. It was a similar type of talk. Yeah, anyway, it was, I loved it there, actually. Napier Street is old Melbourne. There's a tram that goes through it. So there was echoes of Blackpool trams, parts of South London. Very, very interesting. And then had a show in Ballarat, which is an hour away from Melbourne, when I became the visiting professor of fine art there in 2007, 218, I think. Yeah, 218, something like that. So this was a sort of survey of all those book projects and stuff. And you can see some of them on the walls, and then the originals in the cases. One of the problems with artist books is that you can spend 2 years doing them. There's about 50 plates in them, but it's still the size of a book. It's not like a major painting show or anything. I then took this to the School of Art Gallery, Aberystwyth University, and developed some images around the Wye Valley, which seemed to fit the context of travelling from home up to Wales via the Wye. And these are some plate. That's a plate Light Through the Branches. It's wonderful what you can do with some sellotape and a throwaway plastic cup when rendering the landscape in a new way. And these are some of the cabinets of books with the plates block mounted to show what they look like inside. And then from that, I went to the Grosvenor Museum and Art Gallery in Cheshire and did a subversion of the whole of the museum. 13 rooms in the museum recharged as a living photo montage. The book Invader's Guide to the Museum is what came out of it. The cover opened up is my subversion of the Edwardian children's playroom into a Come Dancing set. Come Dancing was there before Strictly, remember, and the mother is looking through the visor at what treats her holiday to Blackpool could bring her. There was a more formal aspect to the show, in a way for me now, the more prosaic bit, even though it's my work. What I really liked doing in that museum was subverting the context of it. This is one of the books I did for it. Veteran and Vintage Cars in Colour became Seasonal Veteran and Vintage Cars in Colour, and seasonal flowers block the view of the driver and the road. So in the museum, there were various rooms decorated formally in period. This is the Victorian parlour. This is my schematic drawing for what I set up there, which was a scene from the motel room. Those of you who know this wonderful film, Thelma and Louise. This was the initial study for it. And I called it Thelma and Louise Pre-Drinks Before the Party. And here they are on the lash, ready to go out on the Raz. Life-size waxworks figures. I was able to go to a waxwork depot and get the waxworks. They had a clothing collection, so I was able to clothe them. Life-size waxworks figures and blow-up sex doll in period museum setting with added contemporary fixtures and fittings. So there is Brad Pitt. Those of you who know the film, he danced for them. Yeah, and he's got a hairdryer in his hand instead of his weapon. Or is that a pistol? Can't remember. Anyway, I put myself into it as well. Here I am in the clothes collection where I'm parading myself with various makeup dramas from the current period. I contacted London Met, I think, where Professor Sharon Lloyd is Professor of Fashion and Makeup, and we did these self-portraits of me doing various trendy lip, eyes, eyebrows makeup in period costume. This one gave me great pleasure. This was a self-portrait preparing the Edwardian Gentleman's Tour de France debut at the museum, and This is the Edwardian gentleman awaiting for his bath to be drawn by his manservant. However, as a self-portrait, it very soon became the mammal, the middle-aged man in lycra. So, David, as we get to the end of this talk, what did you learn? What have you learnt? Well, miss, 17 is Dancing Queen, miss. These are all the wonderful top 90 bingo callers, basically calling cards when the ping pong ball comes up through the plastic vacuum, which I had to do on a regular basis and was frightened stiff to do it. Football has become something very special to me, even though I'm incapable of playing it. This is the Edwardian Match Day special. This is the family going to the local match. Wonderfully, between Chester FC and come on, the mighty Pool, Blackpool. This will cause a rift in the family in later years, I'm sure. A relatively new book, paintball fun for all the family in the Lake District. Each page tells you how to subvert a famous scene in the Lake District with all sorts of contexts of how to propel spray paint into the landscape. Another fascination that's come from things like the Avengers is a study in cult film of Britain from the 70s and 80s, which I've written about. This is a homage to a film called The Wicker Man, 1973, directed by Robin Hardy, a masterpiece of British surrealism. There is the director's cut on the right-hand side, and the book that probably was the genesis for Anthony Schaffer's screenplay, David Pinner's Ritual. Every one of these sorts of episodes I've given you tonight are a lecture on their own, so I'm sweeping through. So the last, one of the last solo shows I had was about my collection of ephemera regarding the Wicker Man and its associated offspring, as it were, and a set of 50-odd montages of deliberate scenes from the film. This is the wonderful Hand of Glory, the midday sun at midnight. They're all pagan symbols and what have you. The midnight sun at midnight 5. Anybody who is a nerd of the film will recognize that there are distinct scenettes running through the whole series. A stroke as gentle as a feather. This is where the landlord's daughter tries to seduce Sergeant Neil Howie, but because he remains a virgin, he is the perfect pagan sacrifice. He was not at all tempted by Britt Ekland's charm in the film. So, a homage to the fourth mentor, Joe Orton, British playwright, and his cooperative Kenneth Helliwell. The kind of people that always go on about whether a thing is in good taste invariably have very bad taste. How apposite. From all at the Royal Society of Printmakers, our new name, thank you.
Thanks very much, David. That was really
thank
great.
you, David. Yeah.
If anybody wants to ask questions, please raise your hand and unmute yourself, and hopefully things will go smoothly.
Thank you, Phil. Wales, thank you.
Great, really interesting talk. Fascinating, David.
Well, it couldn't be made up, you see. The thing about so many lectures I've seen at art school over my career, I've seen people make stuff up for some intellectual gambit, and I can't work like that. I have to do it from, in a sense, the guttural self.
Oh, that was great. It was, I loved all the surreal stuff. It kind of, I've known your work for a while, and now listening to you talking, it kind of everything falls into place. Right from the Avengers onwards.
Yeah. Well, the first television I ever saw that, I saw that probably before Andy Pandy.
Jackie?
David, I thought that was fantastic, but I'm astonished and amazed at how much stuff you must have in your house. I mean, who keeps their very first drawing or bus tickets or those little, when you were in 1978 and 79 with your hair long and your hair short? I mean, I'm amazed at your collectability. That's the right word.
Well, I suppose without it being a lecture on psychology, something to do with the fact that I didn't have much growing up. And so I've tended to collect in order to possess.
Okay. Well,
so when it
thank
came,
goodness you did.
when it came to doing the Grosvenor Museum, we had the largest transit possible because of stuff that I'd collected from boot fairs and stuff 2 years in advance of knowing that I was going to subvert every room in that museum, which included things like 1960s cocktail bars,
Oh, wow.
glass fish, flying ducks, various carpets. Yeah, Jackie, that. So I have an off-site store, which is rammed, and at some point I'm not going to be able to afford to keep it up. And I'm staving that day off because I can't think about it.
I'm interested. Is it all organized and, notated about?
Yeah.
So you could find any one thing you want at any one time.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed with that.
Yeah. I
Wow.
suppose that's how I do the RE in my own way.
Right.
I don't know how I do that as well. Thank you, Jackie. Ian.
Yeah, I just wondered if you'd seen Paul Caldwell's show in the John Soames, where he did an intervention there, and he made these wonderful sculptures out of sugar cubes and things that were related to the objects inside the museum.
Very good.
He had his private view at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a really sort of memorable experience, turning up for that. But I really liked the sort of wit and gentle humour behind his work in that particular show.
Well, humour works on all sorts of levels. It can be Joe Orton or it can be Viz comic. As far as I'm concerned, I can take equal amounts from both. I mean, Joe Orton really was a kind of intellectual carry-on writer, really. And I like what you said about the sugar lumps then. This looks like a plastic spoon, doesn't it? Is a lecture I gave recently in China, and it completely confused them because it says here in emboss, made from paper. But if I do that and I call it a plastic spoon, it really is a plastic spoon, isn't it? I love that. So that's a monument made out of sugar lumps. It totally appeals, Ian. Thank you.
So there's a message from Sheena who says, very enjoyable and entertaining. Thank you, David. Second pencil drawing, that woman looked like the Queen. And then a smiley face. Best wishes. Look forward to seeing your book sometime.
Well, they're in the V&A National Art Library. They're in prominent book art collections. The thing is, they take so long to do. I don't have that many. It's not like print or certain types of print where there's an edition of 50. There's like one, and so yeah. I mean, I enjoy selling them, of course, and that's rare, but it's like giving away something of yourself as well, which to the collector that I am, um, is sometimes hard to, relieve oneself of this thing that you have spent hours on, and it's still the shape of a book. I'm making one at the moment, incidentally, on European rail travel. I've been reading about Joseph Cornell recently. A fascinating guy. He didn't really move from his area in Queens in New York, but he knew the European timetable of rail backwards. Fantastic. Steve.
Dave, you've, I was going to say, suffered higher education as I have. Was your particular attitude to humour a bit of a problem?
Yeah, it always was for me, but because I was resolute in doing it, I think I can say this now. They didn't quite know what to do with me. When I got one of the books purchased by the Museum of Modern Art in New York, it basically circumnavigated most of the theoreticians in one immediate swoop. And yet, ironically, for me, an accolade that I never thought when I entered that foundation course in Blackpool I would ever reach, but was completely non-returnable to the university as a piece of research. Totally useless. And I thought that just summarizes the irony of working in higher education, where the road is wider than long and it's got a lot of potholes in it.
Mm. Yeah.
Didn't answer at all, did it, Steve? I'm sorry. In fact, actually, my veracity for making, collecting, and humour has increased since being on the operating slab, I can tell you. But it was always there, clearly. It just needed sort of pinching out. And I wouldn't advocate to anybody that you walk in front of a car in the road. But anyway, things like that do happen. But I've enjoyed talking to people who've been in similar scrapes, actually. That's actually potentially some of the most enjoyable teaching I've ever done, is talking to people who are in a bit of a scrape.
Just very quickly, when reality enters education, it's a different, almost a completely different experience. Anyway, thanks.
Pleasure.
Does anyone have any more questions?
Yes, where did you cycle in Australia?
I did, oh God, a amateur event that followed the Tour Down Under courses around the Barossa Valley.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hot? Was it hot?
Yeah, it was. It was not as hot as South Africa. I did the West Coast tour and the Cape Argus tour, and that was like a 7 o'clock in the morning start because it was so hot. This was 150k. Yeah, I had to wear, and it sounds daft, I had to wear arm warmers to protect my arms from the sun. The thing about the rest of it in cycling is you got helmet and big thick glasses and stuff, but your arms are bare. The legs had so much embrocation on them that they were basically bulletproof. Yeah.
Beverly?
Yeah, I was interested in your comment when you said about you in St George's Hospital, and looking at your work, which is terribly imaginative. It's, you're putting yourself often into a different space of time, and your imagination is part of that. Did you find that when you were in hospital, that being able to have that talent helped you to get through that trauma?
Yeah, I do. And actually, the nurses caught on that, and they got me talking to. There was only 4 of us. We were in a thing called a high dependency unit, which was the one down from life support. After you've been in that, you get shoved into something that looks like a Star Trek hologram, and there's just 4 of us. And there was one guy next to me, and I'd broken every rib as well as all the nasty things. But this guy had been on holiday in Turkey with his with his wife and daughter. And he was an East End cabbie. And he was in a contraption where his legs were like this, literally like that.
Like a
And I said,
cartoon.
it was fantastic. There's maybe a little drawing of it in that book I did. Anyway, I said, how did you get into that mess? And he said, well, look at you, you know. you got, you know, you got like one hand left. And he said, I was in Bodrum, it's a resort in Turkey, and my daughter had just been on the back of like a tractor tire towed by a speedboat. And I thought, oh, I want some of that. And so he said in this wonderful way, I slipped him 20 euros, Dave, 20 euros. Put it in first and go for it. Fucking thing, it took off. It took off, and when I hit the water, I did the splits.
Oh.
Anyway, I got told off by the nurse because I was laughing so much, I burst some stitches. But I mean, comedy gold, you couldn't make it up. He was in a car tire, and he got the guy to drive the speedboat as fast as it could. He was a big unit of a guy, and it took off. And he said, bloody hell, Dave, I couldn't go back on Ryanair. Seats weren't wide enough. I had to go back in cargo.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't really hear that when I was in tutorials with, I don't know, some very famous painters at Camberwell. It was a little serious. You and Uglow, I couldn't have come out with that then.
No.
In fact, it's a wonder that some people didn't put you off doing it, because I came into art as a kind of a revelation of goodness, not something that was so serious it made you sour. And since the accident, that's got bells on now. It sounds daft, to say I don't take it that seriously, because clearly I do. But I don't take it that seriously that it envelops a seriousness in me that has stopped me enjoying making it. As soon as I stop enjoying making art, I'll know then that it's the time to stop.
Interesting. Thank you.
It's not yet.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to say well done for embracing life and enjoying making art in a really positive and very creative, and bringing humor to people, and fighting against all the hardship and bad things that are happening in the world and in people's lives, and holding on to joy.
Thank you. That's a good, that's a good line, that is. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in the dark here. I just realised.
So, David, you've had another message from Sheena, who says you reflect yourself in your work as Uglow did in his, and somebody else has written here, and you've got lots of claps and smiley faces.
There you go. Yeah. I just wouldn't put a model to torture in the way that Uglow did, that's all. I'd rather get a waxwork figure and dress it up.
Is there anyone else want a last quick question?
I'd just like to say thank you. Oh, God.
Go ahead. Say thank you. Yeah. Whoever that was, I didn't see.
It was me. I just wanted to say thank you again, David. That was a really great talk.
Yeah. And
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
I think that comes from all of us.
Yeah, illuminating.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Switch on all the lights.
Real hand clapping.
See you all around, as they say.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end it now.
Okay, goodbye, everybody. Lovely to see you.
That's it. Bye.